Hey guys, so I was recording, but some issues, so I'm going to record this back again. So we're going to take a look at context with hooks, React context with hooks, useReducer, and if I'm not mistaken, useContext. I can't remember, but we will see that. So let's take a look at the application. This is the little application. As you can see here, I am consolidating the weather data. That is the current state we have. That is an empty object. I will show you this in a second, so don't worry. And also, later, if you don't get the idea here about the context, about the hooks, the reducers, okay, and on the other video that I'm going to upload later too and record, because I haven't recorded that, about Redux with hooks, don't worry, I will create another tutorial for beginners, okay, that you will see me typing everything from scratch, and as I go I'll try to explain what everything is doing. So don't worry if you don't get the whole idea. You can use this code as a basis, and later with a tutorial understand better with that. So we'll try to build a tutorial for each thing I have, building each thing from scratch, so you get the idea. But I will still, for people that really don't care about how to build this thing from scratch, because some people will just want to get the idea of how to create something, of how to add something. Okay, so I'm going to keep adding and uploading these code reviews. So let's continue. So this is a simple weather app. Okay, you can see that we are getting the weather. Let's say Paris. Okay, we're getting this, and as it's going, it's changing or getting the should be okay. Let me close this because it's making this in on change. So this is the state. When we have these fetch results, is that the action has been completed. Okay, so now we have Paris, and this is all the crap Api should send us. Okay, so let me refresh this to remove all that, and let's go to the code. Let's go to package.json to see my version of React up 16.8.6. Okay, I changed something here. Okay, saving that, and okay, so let's actually go to the reducer, sorry, to the store. We're going to create this store.js that contains our context. Okay, we're using React context, so we need to export, because we need this to be available. Okay, this store that is the context, you can pass here a simple or whatever you want. Okay, in this case it's an object. What is this object? This object is just initial state, but we are not going to set that initial state that way. We're going to add the initial state like this. We're going to create a constant named initial state, because why not? And the initial state is going to be this weather data. So let's go back to the app. It's going to be this weather data object that contains an object, in this case an empty object, okay, that is being filled once we fetch the information using the reducer and the action. Okay, so props, well, let's create this. We're going to export this store provider that is going to be the wrapper element. Okay, so we're going to pass props because we need props in order to use props as children that is going to give us access to the rest of the components. And now we're going to use the useReducer hook. The useReducer needs a reducer and in this case the initial state. Okay, let me see if they have something. User is usually preferable. Okay, this is just the thing that they say in the documentation. So the useReducer is going to return us the state and the dispatch. Okay, and the value we're going to return inside this store provider, okay, is going to be the state and the action dispatched. Okay, to all the children elements of this store provider. Okay, so what this thing is doing is every time we call the reducer, we're going to dispatch an action and return the values. So that is what's going on our store.js. Okay, now we need to grab this wrapper and import it into our index.js. Okay, we need to import the store provider wrapper, and with that wrap our application. Okay, that's why we were exporting this store provider. Now the application has the access to the state. So let's go to the components. I showed you the reducer, right? No, I didn't show you the reducer. Okay, it was on the other video. So as I said, this useReducer needs a reducer, and this reducer is going to be imported from reducers and weatherReducer. weatherReducer is this file inside reducers directory that is a constant or a function that accepts the state and an action, and depending on the action we're going to use or return whatever we want. In this case, this is just a simple action. As I said, we will I will show you something. The React Redux hooks I just finished that, and I will show you that's a little bit more complex, just a little bit. Okay, but it's using multiple reducers and things like that. Okay, so don't worry about. Also, we're going to create another tutorial from scratch. So yeah, if this thing is too simple, you know, it's just for you to have an idea. Then later we will create something else. So we're checking the action type. In case you need something else, you just add another case. Okay, you just say a case, you know, done lol done fetching. If I can freaking type. Okay, return lol, and your things, you return your things here, you know, fucking shit, I can type with the payload and all that. Okay, so you can do that, and depending on the action is the case, and that is going to be selected in a way. So here we're returning the state. Okay, the added state with the weather data that is this action payload, and the payload is well, if everything is the same, we're just going to return the state. So this action payload is what is going to populate our weather data object. So let's go back to Cancun. Okay, so the payload is all this information that is populating our weather data object. So we already have the store and the reducer. So let's go to the yes, I only have one component here. Okay, to the main component. So we need use state. Why? Because I'm getting the information from this input. So I can, when I click, tell me, okay, Paris. So when I click or when I hit enter, it gets the data. Okay, so we're getting information here. So as we're going to use hooks, we use this functional way of React, this functional component, I mean. So we need to have access to our data inside our provider. For that, we're going to use React useContext, okay? And we pass the store. The store, we need to import it from our store file, okay? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that is the context. What the fuck is the context? Okay. Nope, this is not it. Okay. So that is going to return the state and dispatch, and we're going to grab those. So, if there's something else, well, let's go in order. Yeah, I'm already consoling that. So let's go in order. So here we already have access to our state, to our context, to our store. Okay. So now we have here an action. This action is the function that is going to dispatch the type, okay, for our reducer. So this is just a fetch where function. We're going to use async to wait for that, and we are wait for the fetch, okay, from a issue, and we await for the response, the JSON, and okay, this is a promise. Remember that this returns a promise. After that, we're going to return the dispatch with the type that is fetch data and the payload that is data JSON once is done. Okay, that remember that our reducer is returning the state and the new the payload. Okay. So this is the function, okay, that is going to dispatch the action. Well, not the action, the reducer. It's going to tell us which case to use inside the reducer. But I want to show you something. We have used effect. Right now, no, that's not it. Right now we need to add something into the input, okay, so we can have the information. Okay, so what if we want to use or we want to, well, yes, use the action at first start, no, when the application starts. So we will use effect. Okay, let me comment this thing out. So we're going to use use effect. So it's going to make the initial call when the component is mounted. Okay. It's going to call fetch weather. Then I also have this one here. It's going to call fetch weather with a hard-coded value that is going to be Paris. Remember that we're using async and we're returning a promise. We can call later then, okay, to set some values that I will need to check. Yes, in order to render something. Because, let me refresh this. Okay. It's making the first call, okay, to adding parties. So we're getting the information right away. But that's just an example. Well, that's how you would use the use effect with the action. Here you're calling the action. But what if you don't want to call the action? What if you want to show something before? Okay, like here there is nothing to search for. So that's why, let me go to the form. Okay, view. Okay, we'll wrap. Let me remove this because I have the state there. You can console the state that way. Okay, let me just remove that. The other one is commented. What the? Okay. So let's go to the form. The form is just an input with an unchanged event that every time it changes, it's going to set the value, okay, of the input to the state. Remember that this set city is using or is setting the state for this city constant. Okay, so that's why we're using use state. We use an empty string as a value, as an initial value. So every time we call set city, it's going to set the state of city. So here, every time we change the values or the value inside this input, we are going to change the city into this value. Okay. So when we click this submit, we call this on submit action that is get weather info. Okay, this is the constant we are calling. So what is this get weather info? It's similar to this use effect. It's just a constant, okay, or a function that is first of all preventing the refresh of the page, and we're checking if city has nothing or city is not city is undefined. We just console.log, nothing to look for. So let's take a look at that. If this is empty and when we click here, you are going to console, nothing to look for. Okay. Else, meaning this is not an empty string or undefined, we're going to get the value of city. If you're not used to hooks, you might be asking, where the hell is this city you're checking coming from? This city is this value. Okay, this is a constant. Remember that this is a constant, and every time we call set city, we're going to set the value of city. Okay. As we are doing here, set city is a function that is inside is getting this event that targeted value, that is the input value, and that is the city right now. Okay, when we fill that, it's going to take the city constant value and check. I haven't checked this, but what if I say something like that? Fetch results. Okay, it's calling something. Well, let me go like this. Okay, you will need to take care of this because it's just returning an error because there's nothing called like that, you know. Okay. So, I will fix that later then, before uploading the repo. So, because what is going on is that when there's nothing, so let me take a look at something. Yeah, so the fetch is going to return nothing, or I will take a look at that later, so don't worry. You will have the corrected. Yeah, because I didn't check that, I forgot to check that. So when we are doing this, okay, there's nothing, so it says cannot read property name of undefined because we're using the name in order to render the details that are here. Okay, so what we could do, okay, I will experiment with this a little bit later. So let's go back to, let's refresh this, and let's go back to an actual city. Okay, so in order to return these details, what we're going to do is to set these conditions, okay, and to manage the state of that. So when the city is reached and we have the response from the API, okay, we're going to console just these fetch results, and we're going to set conditions to true because we need something in order to render conditionally this element depending on what is going on. So as I said, we create this constant conditions and the function that is going to set the state, and here we just set conditions to true. So now conditions is equal to true, and we can do something with that. Okay, so we're going to create this constant weather conditions that is going to be equal to conditions, which is true, and this element to be just an empty. You need to set it to something, define the variable. So I'm just adding, making element equal to an empty string. So if weather conditions that is true in this case, then we're going to return this div class name details, that is all the details we have here. Okay, else if weather conditions is null or false, that is when we have nothing to show, when this thing is empty, then we're just going to show there is nothing to search for, just a simple message. Okay, let me get back that to my screen. Okay, 24 minutes. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it for this simple application, because as I said, for more complex things I'm going to use Redux. So I'm going to focus on that, making more context about React and Redux. So yeah, I think that's it. Oh, let me check just what's going on here. Because where is this thing? So let me call this and say console.log response. So what if I type this? Okay, we're getting this part request, and this is going to be undefined. Okay, main JS44. So response is going to be undefined. So you will just need to check if maybe we could do something, I don't know. If response equals undefined console.log, what could we say? Else, I will say else and add this into the statement. Okay, I didn't get that. Okay, nope, here console.log. So it's not returning anything else, right? Let's just say bad request. So let's say that bad request. Check your city name. Let's see if that works. Okay. Now you can even set element to be this part request. Remember that element. Okay, I didn't show you that. Sorry. Element is just this. Okay. So we are checking if weather conditions is true. That remember that we're setting that to true if the city exists. If the API is responding with something that is not a bad request. Okay. And depending on that, we're going to set this element to be or either this div called details or with class name details that has all the details about the weather, or this element there's nothing to search for. Okay, and you can play with that. So I think that's it. This video is about, okay, so if you want to learn more about this, I have this, it's not mine of course, this Jose Zúñiga, okay, this boilerplate React hooks that explains a lot of things. This is a little more complex, I mean, with the, I think it has, of course it has everything else on their own folders, directories. So, and it has support for multiple reducers. So check that if you want to learn more. This a template. Even he has, okay, he was inspired from these two articles, so check them out too. Okay, so I have something else. Let me show you because why not? So let me remove this and let me even close this. So what do we have here? Okay, I think I'm going to let this here because you know some things has, yeah. So see you on the next one.